Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Hello, feely humans. Welcome to another episode of You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 128 on the magic of curiosity with old Dad Ward, Alie Ward, creator of the remarkable science/comedy podcast Ologies. If you're not listening or subscribed to Ologies, go do that pronto. It's so wonderful. It's so good. And it's all about curiosity. And we talk a lot about curiosity today on You, Me, Empathy. We also talk about Alie's anxiety diagnosis, Catholic guilt, reframing failures, why empathy is difficult and also the best, why Alie works so hard, and mental health in relationships. We talk about so much more than that, and this is such a lovely conversation. Alie is just so easy to talk to, and just a wonderful person. She's a wonderful, feely human. I love talking with her, and make sure to check out her science podcast, Ologies, and she has a newest show on Netflix called 100 Humans. You should also check out if you have Netflix. If you have Netflix, what am I talking about? Everyone has Netflix, right? Right? I think that's true. Anyways, hope you enjoy the show. Make sure to follow You, Me, Empathy on Instagram and Twitter at You, Me, Empathy. We also have a Facebook group. It's called Feely Humans Unite. If you want to join that, that would be wonderful. And the Feely Human Collective, everyone, it is May 4th. Oh, may the 4th be with you. Hey, look at that. May the 4th be with you. I don't know what that voice is. But anyways, may the 4th be with you. On May 27th, you guys, less than a month away, the Feely Human Collective will be out. The website, feelyhuman.co, is where you can go now and learn about it and sign up for the newsletter. And on May 27th, it will be out into the world. And I'm very excited. I'm trying to temper some of that excitement so I can balance it with all of the work I still have yet to do. But I am committed to that date. It will be ready for you on the 27th. I wonder if I should throw a launch party or something. Let me know what you think about that. If that's something that you would go to, be a part of, or if you have any fun ideas about, I don't know, making a bigger splash, getting the word out, that would be great too. Anyways, make sure to follow Feely Human on the socials at Feely Human and join that Facebook group, Feely Humans Unite, and go to feelyhuman.co and sign up for that newsletter before the May 27th launch. Okay, let's get into it. This is, as I mentioned at the top, episode 127 with old Dad Ward, Alie Ward of the Ologies podcast, and 100 Humans on Netflix on the magic of curiosity.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly without judgment about our mental health, our neuroses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being feely humans. You Me Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I am a curious, heart-leading empathyologist because I'm here with daytime Emmy Award-winning science correspondent, science nerd, Ologies podcast creator, and my dad, Alie Ward. Hello, Alie.
Oh my God, that's the best intro. I'm just landing on dad. I know I feel like I've become listeners' dads just because, I feel like I'm the person that's telling you weird facts about toads and then making sure that you know how to change a tire or something.
I mean, I love it. I'm here for it. You are the dad of the internet, and you're a dad that we all need, truly, because we all need to be more informed in life.
And then saying, I care about you, kiddo. I don't know why I've always identified myself more as a dad than a mom. Like I don't have kids, and I probably won't have kids, and we can get into why later if you want. But I've always felt like I would be a better dad than a mom. And so I don't know. I guess that's my lot in life, is just to be like a bunch of strangers' dads, but I'm cool with that.
That's interesting. And I do want to delve into that and like why that is. Cause I know me personally, growing up with just a dad that I didn't like, it was kind of an a-hole. I don't identify like as a dad, and I'm not a parent myself either. And so I think I'm more aligned to like the traditional sort of motherly, sort of comforting sort of roles in my, relationships and stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting to hear a guy say that they don't identify with because it seemed like I felt kind of weird that I was like, wow, I just don't feel like a mom. But my mom's super cool. My dad's awesome. And so, but yeah, I had kind of like messy grandparents, but I think it's funny that you grow up as a gender, and then you think, well, I have to be this type of parent if I ever have kids, or I have to be this type of friend. And like, if I'm a woman, I have to be super nurturing and maybe a little naggy. And it's kind of cool to think that in the future, like if people have kids, you could just check off, like, do you want to be the mom or the dad? You can maybe just like a menu, decide what you want more.
Right. And I just wish there wasn't so much of the boxes, right? Like so much of the, like, this is what this role means. And, you know, shedding some of that artifice is probably a good thing.
Yeah, I guess maybe just then mislabeling yourself in binary terms is one way to kind of turn it upside down for now.
Totally. Well, we always kind of kick off the show, Alie, with just an emotional check-in. How are you feeling? How's the week been?
Oh, that's so nice of you to ask. I know I was looking forward to doing this because I'm like, this is going to be a nice time to talk. Huh. It's, I've had kind of a weird week, actually. I've had kind of a stressful week. Like I am a person who like worries about doing the wrong thing a lot. And I mean, I can't go into too many details, but I got catfished recently.
Oh, God.
Pretty bad. And found out that a relationship that I had was based completely on things that were not true. And so I've been pretty rattled by that and just wrapping my brain around it and feeling betrayed and mad, and then also like super empathetic and really sad. And so, yeah, I've just been a real kaleidoscope over here of brain, heart feelings. But yeah, so but it's funny because it's those things end up being so much more stressful and occupying sometimes than just like workload, like those kind of feelings where you have this real melange where you feel some certain way and then you feel guilty for feeling that way. That's the worst. And then you're like, wait, why do I feel guilty? Someone dicked me over. Why do I feel guilty for being mad? So yeah, I have to do a lot of checking in with myself lately. How do you feel?
Thank you for that. But I'm gonna follow up first on what you're saying, which is, first of all, I'm sorry that happened. That's shitty. And second of all, I love your word use of melange. We truly are, I think, as humans, and I think it's important to remember that we are a kaleidoscope of mess and highs and lows, and like, should I feel this and shouldn't I? But like, the key is, and I think you have sort of done this very well in your life, or at least certainly sort of showcase in your shows and the work you do, like the importance of curiosity, right?
Yeah, I think that it's can end up solving a lot of problems if you just keep asking questions, whether or not it's how do I feel, should I feel this way, you know, am I being catfished? All of those curiosity questions can lead you to the right way.
Right.
But yeah, it's I think that that's something that's undervalued in adults. I think it's like, the children are so curious, but as an adult, you're supposed to pretend like you know everything, which is
that's interesting. Yeah,
so,
that's true. That's weird.
Yeah, it's just not it. And I don't know. It's such a bravado, and I think that the more you can admit, like, I don't know, people are really willing to tell you things and teach you things if you admit that you don't know them. You know?
Yeah, absolutely, and it creates a beautiful connection and learning opportunity, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's, people disarm a lot when they realize that they're not talking to someone who is going to pretend that they know things. You know, I think
Right.
people, when they're realize that whoever they're talking to, like their ears are open and they're like, what? Huh? Cool. People want to share more than just having someone say, oh yeah, that's what I thought it was, you know, because that's not very fun to share. Imagine if I had just told you my whole saga of how I was feeling and you were like, oh yeah, I know. So I think, I just think asking people questions, especially about what they do and how they feel is you know, within reason, of course, is something that we could use a little more of.
I agree completely. And I do want to explore the curiosity piece of it a bit more, but I'm going to honor your question to me, which is my emotional check-in this week. So Alie, I'm channeling you a little bit in the sense that like I'm trying to do all the things all the time.
Watch out.
I know. It's a high at times, but it's overwhelming. And so lately I've been building this like new collaborative mental health space called the Feely Human Collective. And I've been building it slowly for the past like 6 months or so. And it's going to be like a space for like mental health workshops and like a journal and a shop and eventually sort of like in-person empathy workshops and things in businesses and schools and like retreats. And, you know, I'm working on all of that, but it's just me. And this week I took off from my day job to kind of hunker down on it. And I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling this thing. And I wonder if you can relate to this with all of your many sort of, you know, amazing things that you've put out into the world, you know, and have created. And, you know, I'm feeling like very passionate about it. It's a passion project, but I'm also feeling very scared. And I'm feeling like, okay, what if I put it out there and it's not what I want it to be? Or like and I know like intellectually that's a sort of a tired, you know, frame of thinking, but like,
Don't judge yourself for feeling that way, though.
I'm prejudging myself. I can't help it.
It's so normal. I mean, it's so normal, and it just means that it means something to you. You know what I mean? If it meant nothing to you, you wouldn't be worried about it. But the fact that you're like, oh, what if it's not what I want? It's just because you have something invested. And I think every project I've ever worked on that has meant a lot to me, I've felt that way. And in hindsight, I've always realized that was not a stress I needed to put on myself necessarily. It's always good if you are doing something that net is, there's always value to that is making stuff. There's always value to it. And it's so funny because like, and all the people I've interviewed for, you know, science shows or for ologies, like everyone is always worried that what they're doing will fail. And all the scientists I talk to always say like, failure is part of progress. And you people think that you're going to like crash and burn and fail spectacularly. But the great thing about failure is that it actually happens in like little micro ways where oh, my website, it turns out there's a hiccup on my website. Okay, I fix the website. Okay,
Right.
turns out that that this font doesn't show up. Okay, fix the font. And so we think that we're just going to launch something and it's going to like Hindenburg, but really it's just like there's just little problems and you fix it until you have what you have. And it's like, oh, well then it's just not failure. It's just problem solution, problem solution, problem solution,
Hmm.
until you get what you want. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, go figure. Like, um, yeah, and I did the same thing with ologies. I wanted to make ologies for like 10 years.
Right.
And I was like, what if this is idea I want to do and it sucks and nobody likes it and I waste my good idea? And it's like, oh my God, I should have made this so much sooner. There is a place for what you're making. People appreciate it and, just have fun in the process and don't be afraid of failure because you have the capability of making adjustments as they need to be made. And that's all they really are, is they're not failures. They're just adjustments.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. That's very kind and empathetic. Yeah, it is a weird thing. Like I keep telling myself that I just need to kind of like hold on to that sort of guiding star, that North Star, like that is the thing that matters. And, it's going to change. And I think that that's part of anything is things change, things, maybe aren't exactly as we sort of envision them in our minds, but like with like relinquishing maybe, and I'm talking to myself at this point, with relinquishing like some of that sort of future tripping anxiety stuff, like I'm allowing it to breathe, which could potentially lead to like sort of some brighter things that I may not be anticipating right now,
Oh my God. Yeah. It's going to go so much better than you think. That's the cool part is especially when you worry about things. Oh, you're going to look back and be like, how was I ever worried about this? Oh my gosh. Like, why didn't I start this and this? And,
Yeah.
because you're coming at it with passion and it sounds so like a self-help workshop, but you're coming at it with passion and purpose. And those things really matter. Like when you are wanting to make something because you want it to be made and you want it to help other people or shine a light on other people, like that is going to drive you to make it the best that it can be. And, it's going to sustain you when times get tough. And it's just, having that kind of purpose behind it, a bigger purpose than you. I'm assuming that you're not making this kind of space just for your own gain and
Certainly not. Certainly not.
for like the glory and the money.
Right.
And so
there's so much money in mental health.
Exactly. I mean, I think that when you have a good reason for wanting to make something, it ends up just being like wind in your sails,
Yeah, yeah. And to be clear, I would totally read a self-help book by Dad Alie Ward.
I just feel like I cherry pick from nature and from scientists where I'm like, oh, this can fix this problem. I'm like, oh, I'll borrow this anteater's resolve, and I'm thinking of doing a series of live talks of just all the self-help stuff I've gleaned from ologists, just from asking them questions.
I mean, you have this honor of like speaking to so many bright, brilliant people, and it's just you're like this little sponge, taking it all in.
I mean, that's one of the great things about doing this kind of job where you get to ask people things. Like it's such a gift to be able to keep learning, but,
Yeah.
I mean, that's so nice of you to say. I just feel like, there are people all around us who we have no idea the things they know. And I always say like, they might be standing in line next to you, like at Trader Joe's, and you have no idea they're an expert in a certain kind of physics or cactuses or, whatever. And just that they all have a story and they all have, ups and downs, and they all have these little nuggets that you can take with you. And it's just cool to just think, wow, people are passionate about so much stuff. And once you get them talking about it, they just light up and you end up learning so much,
It is a beautiful thing. And I think I try to do that a lot here on the show. And I've met so many amazing therapists and psychiatrists and just thinkers and writers in this space. And I think it takes a bit of ego reducing, when it comes to like having an open heart and being willingness to just listen, right? I think that one of the huge sort of tools of sort of building empathy is actively listening, just like being present and listening and being willing to learn, and not sort of leading with our egos, but leading with our hearts.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's like something about strangers that you never know like what their last birthday was like. Did they have a good birthday? Did they feel lonely on it? You don't
Yeah.
know what they're struggling with, or what they're really excited about, or what text message they're waiting for, or what things really press their buttons because it makes them feel like shit inside.
Yeah.
And so I know that there's a lot of people who do a lot of bad things. And that is not something that we can ignore, but the notion that a lot of people do a lot of bad things because they're feeling awful feelings is something I feel like we can always take into consideration,
Yeah.
And I think that's one reason why I'm struggling so much this week, is because I'm feeling really pissed, but I'm also feeling really empathetic and really thinking about the pain that would cause someone to maybe lie to someone
Right.
for so long, and so it's really hard to sort out your own emotions without feeling the emotions of the other person, and trying to step back and forth between how do I feel versus how might someone else feel who did something inappropriate. So it's really, empathy can be really, really like so uplifting and make you feel so connected. And then sometimes it can be hard because you maybe don't stand in your own feelings. You're busy feeling all the feelings of the people around you.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I do that all day, every day. Too much. It's a recovering people pleaser type of situation.
Oh my God. Why do you think you became a people pleaser? Like, I'm sure that you've explored this a bunch in your own life and in your own thoughts, but like, like, where do you think it came from?
I mean, it certainly came from, and I will take all the questions. You're being so generous. We'll get back to you in a second.
No, I love it.
I grew up with, they wouldn't love me saying this, but I think my parents are both a little, certainly my father, narcissistic. Mm. And I am a very sensitive, sort of feely person, and sort of growing up in an environment that felt a little unsafe at times, and felt like I couldn't really be who I was, Mm-hmm. It took me into my 30s to start really exploring that. And so I learned to kind of like, okay, I need to really kind of make sure that, I'm not tipping the boat. My family was always very loud and sort of aggressive, and my other siblings sort of got into the mix, and I was always the one that sort of stood off to the side, kind of listening and just kind of taking it in, and then later sort of talking about it in therapy or writing about it or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. I've always been there. And I think like those childhood experiences, and I'm going to bring this back to you in a sec, and I wonder if you can relate to this, Alie, is I believe, and it's something I'm working on in therapy, that I don't deserve like good things or love or,
Yep.
You can relate to
all
that.
Yeah. My therapist and I talk about this a lot, about, I was explaining to him that I feel like, when you used to play skee ball and you would get like tickets for playing skee ball, and then you could go turn them in at the arcade for like an eraser or like a Matchbox car.
Sure.
I always feel like I walk up and everyone else is like, okay, this will take 10 tickets. And then they see me and they're like, oh, Alie, that'll be 400 tickets. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll go get more tickets. I'll go earn more tickets.
Yeah.
So I always feel like there's something about having to compensate. And I completely hear what you're saying. And that's really good that you can take a step back and kind of see what your family role was and where you compensated by being bigger by being smaller. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think my grandparents were super narcissists. And I think that there's something that is so afraid of being like the people who seem to have no awareness of how maybe they were impacting other people, or they were really so all about themselves that you were like so afraid of carrying that on like genetically or something that you're like, I am going to use all of my effort to make sure that I never have a blind spot about other people's feelings. And to the point where you prioritize them over your own, or,
Yeah. And that certainly happens. And I've learned I've been, just very personally, I've been very hurt by my family,
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt a little sort of black sheepish, and they see me as someone who, like my mother straight up, like I was crowdfunding for this Feel Human Collective thing, and it's about creating safe spaces for empathy and vulnerability. And her response to me was, "Yeah, I'd rather support something that actually helps people." So. Yeah, that's a proper response, Alie. Like it, and so like I'm 38. I'm finally in my life starting to realize that we need to like latch onto the people who actually see us and accept us, and like and champion our growth, and not sort of do the opposite, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, and it's so funny too because you never know what is behind someone shitting on your ideas, if they're jealous or if they're threatened or whatever.
Sure.
And it's really hard, like, to not just take what people say about you or your ideas as like, oh, well, maybe they see the truth and I'm the one that doesn't understand.
Right. It makes you question yourself for sure.
Yeah, I do that too. And just for me as your dad ward, I'm saying you're on the right track, brother. Keep it up.
Thanks, Pops.
Yeah, so fuck that. But yeah, it's really tough too because you feel like, oh, well, maybe the person who knows me the best must be able to see me the most clearly, and sometimes like they can't because it threatens certain parts of them,
Yeah.
And it's just it's really tough, that boundary between like letting other people's thoughts and feelings kind of affect how you feel about yourself. I was talking about this to my boyfriend is amazing. His name is Jarrett Sleeper. He also has a mental health podcast.
What?
Yes, he does.
Amazing.
Yeah, he has ADHD, and so he has a podcast called My Good Bad Brain, and he talks a lot about ADHD and depression. And so I'm lucky to have a partner who's very like, let's talk about feelings,
Yeah, that's great.
And he's awesome. And I was talking about this to him last night. I posted some selfie and like I looked a little kind of weird in it. And I was telling him, it's funny that if someone told me that I looked a little weird in this, like it wouldn't hurt me at all, because the thing that looked weird, which was like my hair looked kind of weird in it. This is so specific, but my hairline kind of like it looks kind of like, because my hair is kind of light, it looks a little bit like my hairline is receding in one spot if the light hits it a certain way. But
okay.
Like,
all right.
It's just like my hair's kind of like blonde there.
Sure.
And it was funny. I was like, if someone made fun of me for that, like I wouldn't give a fuck at all, because it's not something that I'm very self-conscious about. I'm self-conscious about other things in my life, but for some reason I'm like, my hairline's just like that. I have like not a straight hairline, like not one of them. But it was funny because I was like, it's weird, because if someone makes fun of something or tries to hurt you on a thing you already feel about yourself, it is devastating. But if someone tries to own you and take you down on something that like you don't give a fuck about, it's like you're impervious to it. You're like, whatever. Like, and so I was like, oh, well, perhaps the meat and potatoes of like not feeling so affected by people is to just not care yourself,
Yeah.
And a stupid thing about like, if you look at my hairline in a certain light, it looks weird, seems like a stupid example, but it's just all the things that you're afraid of people judging you on. If you stop judging yourself, that is when the real freedom comes. So it's not about evading the judgment of others. It's just about not judging yourself. And then it doesn't matter what other people say. And I know that seems so basic, but I was like, interesting. Perhaps I should stop judging myself so harshly about some things,
Yeah. And that's so well said. And it's such it's so important when it comes to our mental health, right? Because like it's such a like science, right? It's such a complex thing we're dealing with, emotions and our brain chemistry and all these things, and and to kind of like add in these other sort of external influences that frankly we have no control over, it just makes it all that more overwhelming to try to kind of know ourselves and to figure it all out, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know, it's weird because talking to this procrastination expert who I had on the podcast last week, he was talking about essentially perfectionism doesn't exist. You will never be perfect, so don't get so hung up on things that you can't move forward because you're afraid of imperfections, because no one's perfect. And one thing I don't think I mentioned this in the episode, but one thing I love about him is this dude sends out emails with typos all over the place. Like he doesn't, he gets back to you so fast. Like you write him an email, he gets back to you in 5 minutes. Maybe things won't be capitalized. Maybe there'll be a typo in there, but you get an email back from him.
Yeah.
And he just is action oriented. Whereas I might be like, okay, someone wrote me an email. I'm going to wait until 3 days from now when I can really focus. And then I'm going to write a 12 paragraph long email that I set, you know what I mean? You're like,
Yeah.
This guy's just like, sure. Yeah. Send me a shirt in XL. And you're like, great. And so that's one thing that I feel like I kind of learned from him is no one is judging you on imperfections as much as you're judging yourself.
100%. Yeah.
No one sees that stuff. No one sees if, you put 2 spaces after a word in a tweet. No one cares.
I have a degree in English literature, and my wife teaches college English writing, so that is that is obviously something I know that still happens.
Oh my God. And my parents, they're all journalists. My mom was a copy editor. And so for me, for a long time, even just in emails back, to my parents, like I would be sure that everything was perfect. And just because, I come from like a little microculture where, we're paid to notice those things. And
Sure.
I started to realize like, it doesn't matter. Like nobody will remember that. And one other thing that I use sometimes is when I'm stressed out or when I fuck up, or when something is difficult, I have literally imagined myself in a hospital on a deathbed, and I'm just like old and gray, and like things are beeping in the background, and there's like a half-eaten cup of Jello, and I just think, will this thing that I'm freaking out about, will I think about it on my actual deathbed? And for the most part, the answer is always no.
Right.
Will I think about, this is a bad example. I was saying like I farted in like 7th grade geometry class. I might think about that because it was pretty funny. But like, will I worry that I couldn't make, this person's second baby shower because I was out of town? Like, well, actually showing up for people does matter. But like, just little gaps or, that an episode went up 4 hours late. That doesn't matter.
No one cares.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It actually probably is the stuff that you will think about is, did you show up for people more? But I get on myself sometimes because I travel a lot. And so I have to miss things for work. And so I'm like, oh God. But your friends, if they're your friends, understand and forgive you. But I just use the deathbed test. Will this matter?
Yeah, I love it. That's a great test.
Forgiving yourself is so important.
Yeah, it truly is. How is that? So we'll get into some mental health stuff, but I'm curious, like when it comes to like for you, Alie, you create this show, Ologies, a show that I love and everyone should listen to. It's such a masterfully sort of pieced together, very comedic, very enlightening piece of art, truly.
Oh.
And I know that's kind of like maybe blowing smoke, but I'm not like that. It's truly so. Like, how do you, as someone who has had sort of maybe some troubles with like overworking and like doing too much and maybe being hard on yourself, how has that been from like day one of Ologies to wherever you are now, years later?
Oh, that's such a good question. And also, thank you for saying all of that nice stuff.
Yeah, of course.
I'm really bad at recognizing compliments. But thank you.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate that. It's funny because I have to keep reminding myself that I'm getting better at things. And so when you get better at things, you get faster at them, like if you're playing guitar or if, you work at the library and you scan books, your first day scanning books, you're probably not going to be as fast as your, third year there. And so, as someone who tends to judge herself and who tends to try to get approval from others by how hard I work and how much I do, I have to remind myself, like, an episode now isn't going to take as long as it did the first year. And so if I finish it faster, it doesn't mean I'm not working as hard on it,
Right.
I'm just faster at it. But, part of, I think, why I work as hard as I do is I just feel like, I a little bit of behind it is that I worry that I'm a woman in entertainment and that I just have like an expiration date,
Right.
I'm like, okay, I'm 43 now. And, how much longer will they let me work on camera? How much longer until someone says, like, get like an eye lift and fix your hairline or whatever?
Fuck that.
Which I'm lucky that I get to keep working, but there's a part of my compulsion is probably like, oh God, there's going to be some bell that's going to ring and they're going to be like, okay, you have to send her off to the glue factory. And so I try to make myself as useful as possible, which a lot of that is just unfounded fear,
Right.
But when I first started working on ologies, it was such a passion project for me that I was doing all the editing myself because I didn't have any funding for it. And so I wasn't going to go hire, editors to help me every week. And so I was working like a cool 60 hours a week just on that. And then on top of that, yeah, I mean, I was like, I remember it was my actual birthday and I was in my closet editing the ornithology episode. And my friends were like, we're driving past your house. Can you come out just for dinner? And I was like, no, like, I got to get this thing up. And so like, and to now where, I have way more time and, than I did to, just bathe and stuff. So that's good as I'm washing my hair more regularly. It was the first year. But the funny thing is like when you really like what you do and if it takes off, then you end up maybe that brings more work. And you're like, okay, well, what do I say no to? What do I say yes to? And my policy is always like, say yes to everything. So I'm trying to get a little bit better about that. But I learned a lot in that procrastination episode. And I know I've brought it up twice, but
It's a great episode.
I was like waiting to do that. I needed that episode like 2 decades ago. I needed that. Like part of my wanting to track this person down is because I was like, I need answers. And so, learning a little bit about workaholism and being busy too much is a lot of it is just this fear that you're not going to do a good job. So you make a job take longer because you think you have to noodle it to death and you think that you can't start because what if it's not good? And so I think a lot of like healthy work habits is just anxiety and the anxiety that something's going to be good enough, and so it's not that you have to have fewer jobs necessarily, or it's not that you have to do, less, but it's just, you have to attack things with, a little bit more confidence and swiftness, and you end up, more productive and less tired. So I'm always trying, but
it's hard.
It is a little hard, but I am really lucky that I really love what I do. Like, and I've had so many shitty jobs that I feel like I can say that as someone who has like gotten up at 5 a.m. to spray lettuce and who's worked as a telemarketer and who has, cleaned up garbage, like literal garbage, leaking garbage cans on movie sets. Like, so I feel like, I know that I really like what I do. And I know that like, I get so much, validation from people who are like, hey, you're doing a good thing. It's not like I'm, trying to scam people for their credit card information. So the job is intrinsically rewarding as well as, extrinsically. So part of me is just like, I really like doing it. But yeah, I booked my first vacation though.
Yay.
I know, right in the start of a coronavirus outbreak.
Oh God, yeah.
But I finally booked a vacation. I'm going to Costa Rica in a couple months.
Amazing.
So I'm just good with some friends where they convinced me to take a vacation. So hopefully so far Costa Rica, no coronavirus outbreaks. So
Fingers crossed.
doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love working, but I also feel like I'm having to learn like people still like me and appreciate me even if I'm loafing.
Yeah.
That's something even if I'm just sitting on the couch.
They do.
Still,
yeah. It's because it's you. It's you're the thing that brings sort of the uniqueness to the thing. Like that's who you are, and no one can take that away, and no one can replicate that because it's uniquely you.
Just in life, like there's no one in my life that I love and cherish because of how hard they work. I like them because they're sweet or they're funny or they're fun to hang out with, or, I admire their spirit. There's no one that I'm like, you know what I really like about them? They're tired a lot.
Right. They have bags under their eyes. I really appreciate those.
That's not how it goes. Getting a dog has been really helpful too, because
doggos are the best.
But they're so sweet. Yeah, I've got one sitting right next to me, and so it's nice to just go over and have some petting time. And then I was like, oh, look at that! I took a break.
They're little empathy machines, those dogs.
They really are. They're the best. I wanted one for so long. So I've got Grammy now, which is helpful. But
Grammy.
Grammy's still a gremlin. But yeah, working too much is sometimes a problem. But you know who's really great at that? My friend Simone Yetch, who her name looks like Simone Giertz, but she's Swedish, and so it's really pronounced Yetch. So I always feel weird because I feel like if I say it the way that it is written, I'm mispronouncing it. But if I say Yetch, then
Yetch
it doesn't track. But she is amazing, and she had a brain tumor that she's recovering from. In 2018, she had surgery for it. I know. I mean, and a super rare one for someone her age, and watching the way that she has dealt with it, and as someone who's also kind of a, real workhorse, how she's had to kind of let herself heal and kind of have a different relationship with her work and herself. And she's so inspiring. Whenever she comes to stay with me, she's always models really good sleep hygiene too. She's like, I feel like the earlier I go to bed, the more of a badass I am. And I'm like, that's amazing. Such a good thing to hear from a friend who I admire in so many ways. And she said one thing that she learned about recovering from a brain tumor is that she doesn't have to work 12-hour days. Like she ends up getting to do the work that she loves, but she's also learned that part of that is letting herself rest and taking care of herself. And so it's really nice to have people in your life who are so inspiring on so many ways and can help you kind of grow.
Yeah.
And so she's amazing. And so, I think trying to like see good sleep hygiene as badass has like been a real revelation.
When you say sleep hygiene, what do you mean?
That's like a term that just means like, okay, what time are you going to bed?
Gotcha.
Are you getting 8 hours? Are the lights all off? Are you giving yourself space at the end of the night to unwind? Or are you like Alie Ward, who falls asleep with her face on a laptop and the lights on? And so I'm trying, and I've been doing that less and less and less since I've realized that you're not going to be as happy or productive when you work yourself to the bone. Like there's no prize at the end of the day for martyrdom. No one's like, oh, you suffered the most. Here's a prize. Like what? No. Like, and my boyfriend went through this too. Like he had to buy a new computer, recently, and, he was fretting about the cost and stuff. And I was talking to him and I was like, well, either way, that computer costs the amount of money it costs. So you can either look at it and feel like fretful about it, or you can be like, sweet, this computer rules. And he's like, oh, that's a good point. So it's like, no one is ever going to swoop out of the sky and be like, I see that you're in tremendous amounts of pain. Here, you're a good person, Yeah. Were you raised Catholic or no?
No, I wasn't, but I was raised in kind of like a evangelical leaning Christian home. Yeah.
I think that there's something a little biblical that does I know that religion can be really foundational and really grounding and provide a lot of like peace and comfort for a lot of people. I think depending on how it's used, just like anything, a spatula can be a great tool, or it can swat you on the butt depending on how it's wielded. So I think religion can sometimes, if used incorrectly, like, I grew up in this very martyrdom Catholic family. A larger scope of it. And yeah, I think that it can make you feel like the meek inherit the earth and you shouldn't enjoy your life if others are suffering. And I just think that there can be some messages that get pretty twisted,
100%. Yeah. I've since kind of left the church, in my late teens, early 20s, because it wasn't aligned to kind of the more sort of inclusive, sort of heart-leaning, sort of we're all in this together sort of mindset that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the same for you? Like, did you grow up growing up as a Catholic? I'm stumbling over my words. Do you still consider yourself a Catholic? Do you?
Oh God, no. Oh God, no. Only when I have to cite myself growing up in Catholicism in order to like poke fun at Catholicism. Will I say that like I have a license to do that? But no. I mean, I was like goth growing up and with friends.
Oh, that's right.
Like I have, friends who were gay and friends who, would not dress their gender, or would not dress their biological sex, growing up. And so I had, my boyfriend wore a dress to the prom. My other friends really, my guy friends wore makeup and stuff. And so at the time, in the 90s, that was really judged, and in the Catholic Church was so not welcoming of people who, weren't married heterosexuals. It just didn't align with my understanding of people or fairness. And so, yeah, I always thought it was like an incredibly greedy and wasteful, religion and culture. And I know a lot of people get certain things out of it. They might get certain benefits. I myself just didn't align with it.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of, I think I grew up feeling a lot of guilt for when I was happy, or feeling a lot of guilt for having, certain needs met, because then immediately my next thought was like, but, do I deserve this? Do I deserve nice things? Did I earn nice things? Do I have any outstanding confessions I need to make to a stranger?
Yeah, there is when you hear about Catholic stories, guilt is the sort of primary focus and the primary driving force. And it seems so damaging. Like, did you just find yourself putting that on yourself, or did you get that through like Sunday school, your parents? Like,
I think a little bit of both. I think, I think I kind of internalized some messages a little bit too much. But I had really punishing, pretty fucked up grandparents, and yeah,
on both sides.
My dad's grandparents lived out on a farm in Montana, and they were pretty chill. They were also Catholic, but that grandmother was Catholic and went to mass every day and said the rosary for people, but didn't make you feel bad about yourself. But my other grandparents were really flashy, kind of narcissistic, pretty greedy. They would run like insurance scams and then buy jewels with them. Like, they were weird.
Oh my God.
They were not good people. And
good Lord.
They were terrible. But and I've talked about this in therapy, but like once call waiting was invented, and my grandfather didn't really understand what it was, and I was on the phone with a friend. He called for my mom, and I said, "Hold on, Grandpa. I'm just going to put you on hold for a second. I'm going to click over and get out of this call, and then I'll get my mom." And he didn't understand. He thought I hung up on him. And that was about a month before Christmas, but they would give a check to everyone, all the grandkids at Christmas. And he was so angry that he thought I hung up on him, despite like me apologizing and explaining like, no, there's just this thing where another call can come in, and my mom apologizing and stuff, that my grandparents gave me half as much for Christmas that year to punish me. And I remember just feeling like I shouldn't take any of, they'd give each kid $100, which, was just a lot of money. And they gave me 50 that year, just as like a you're on our shit list kind of a thing because of this
Wow.
call waiting situation. And I remember being like, I don't feel comfortable even taking $50 from them if they didn't want me to have it. Like,
Right.
and so I was crying and I gave it back to my grandfather, just saying, I don't feel right having this. And he exploded. And it was the only time I've ever heard my dad use the F word. He just told them to keep their fucking money. And then I literally never saw my grandparents again. Like,
Wow.
but before that, my grandparents had been physically abusive and mentally abusive. I mean, long before I was born, they would, beat their kids up. And so we didn't see them again because my parents were just like, enough is enough, like last straw. And then one by one, my aunts and uncles were like, well, if you guys don't have to go to Easter and Christmas, like we don't have to go either. And so one by one, this big Catholic family detached from my grandparents, but I always felt this overwhelming guilt for being this little catalyst. And even though I can objectively stand back and say like, okay, well, that little act of, I don't feel like I deserve this, or I don't feel that this is right. I was 13 or something at the time. Like, I had this guilt for like, oh, I did I break my family up, or
Right.
did I save, my younger cousins from dealing with that? Did it break a cycle of abuse? Or, being a whistleblower is really, it feels like a really shitty position to be in, because you see something happening that's not right, but at the same time, you don't want to make things worse. And so, but yeah, my grandparents were like, if you do something we don't like we will make you feel like shit about it.
God.
So, yeah, they were super weird. They used to come over and you would have inspections, and they would inspect our rooms, and they'd give me a roll of nickels, my sister a roll of dimes, my other sister a roll of quarters, and for everything wrong in your room, they would take back a coin.
Wrong?
So,
What is wrong? Give me a wrong.
like dust on a bookshelf, or your corner's
goodness.
not tucked, or a piece of paper lying out or something. They'd take back money from you. And so, yeah, like, this notion of like, I have to be perfect and I can't make any waves, even if something bad is happening, was like something I'm still working through decades later, and so it's tough when I feel like someone has done something that's maybe not super, above board. It's really hard for me to say like, hey, that sucks. Cause I'm like, what if I'm in the wrong here? Or what if it explodes? Or why did they do it? So yeah, I mean, but it's so funny to have people be super religious and yet care, like not examine that they're doing things that are maybe not super healthy for people,
Right.
But yeah, so
I'm sorry that you had to go through that. It
thanks
sounds.
for listening.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's such the thing that I've always struggled with certain brands of religion, and I, of course, like I'm only like you, Alie, speaking my lived experience, which is this righteousness and this kind of punishment reward nonsense that is really just about kind of making people feel like shit. And I think that's not a good way to go about living.
Yeah, it's really like this, like a piousness or a judgment, even just giving people the binary that when you die, if you did anything and you didn't acknowledge it or correct it or tell a stranger, whatever, like you will go rot in hell for eternity. Like just setting up that binary, I think is, I think in mental health, it's called splitting, where you put things into, really stark contrast. I think, from what I've read of people who struggle with borderline personality, like that's something that, someone can be the best person in the world and they can be a terrible person later because of this splitting, where I guess it is helpful for people to categorize things. And I feel like really stark religious models like that almost introduce this concept of of splitting, which is a really unhealthy way to look at life. They introduce that, they indoctrinate people with that,
Yeah.
and it's almost like indoctrinating people with a mental health struggle, because I think our culture kind of does that a lot too, where in terms of our political parties, you're either super aligned with one or super aligned with another instead of having it be more issue based, and I think that someone being super famous and then, someone turning and wanting to tear them down where they're awful. And so I think that in a lot of ways where we can't see grayscale is really damaging to people and damaging to our own self-perception. Because if we're out judging other people as either they're good or they're bad, what are we going to do to ourselves? We're either going to be like, I'm good and I'm in the right and everyone else is a piece of shit, or we're going to be like, I'm a piece of shit, I don't deserve anything. So the more we do that with other people, that of course we're going to turn that eye on ourselves instead of seeing like, hey, I am a good person who maybe, messed up or put my foot in my mouth or something. We see things in these binaries that are really damaging.
I couldn't agree more. And I've been trying to sort of rail against it for a good while. Because it's not, I think it was Lori Gottlieb. I read her book recently. It's called Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. And she, in it, one of the things that I loved about it is just chock full of wisdom. And one of the sort of things that stuck out in my mind was this idea that we grow in connection with others. And I feel like that is like foundational, sort of like what we need to be doing as humans. And the things that you're talking about, like these binary frameworks, there's just no room or space for it, and I think, when religion or any sort of frame of thinking gets to a point where like you have to be a certain way in all of these areas, you have to check all of these boxes or you're a bad person, like that it's just so, it's hurtful. It's mean. Yeah. It's just not being a kind, sort of generous, heart-leading human.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's interesting the way that we handle conflict when you consider yourself unimpeachable and you consider someone else completely evil. Like that conflict is not going to get resolved. No, it's not going to get resolved because you are not probably completely unimpeachable and that person is not completely evil. That person might be hurting and you might be irritable, and I think this is something that my boyfriend and I in our relationship have gotten a lot better at. We've been together, by the way, 8 years, but we have broken up for like a year at a time, gotten back together, broken up again. Like we are a hot mess. Like we are, we used to be, and we're so great now. I mean, part of it was I had to understand I had anxiety and in fights, I would just, the scientific term is conglobate. I would just turn into an armadillo or like a roly-poly bug. Like I would just couldn't talk sometimes.
Just kind of shut down?
Yeah. In fights, I just couldn't. And I got mugged when I was in my 20s and I couldn't scream. And it's just in fights, sometimes I just, I just choke. Like I just can't. I get so scared. Or I'm just like, okay, like I can't handle and I'm out of here. And he has ADHD and there's something that we didn't, before he was diagnosed, we had no idea. We didn't know about this at all, but there's something called rejection sensitivity when you have ADHD. And people who have ADHD have grown up being told that they're fuck ups so much that in relationships, if you're upset with them, even if it's for something so minor, it is so painful for them because it's just like, oh, here's another person telling me I'm a fuck up. So if it's like, hey, I really would appreciate it if you would have unloaded the dishwasher or something, that is something that with someone with ADHD that can be like, oh, I'm always fucking up, and so we would have all these fights. Both of our feelings would be so hurt all the time. And, and it's easy to be like, well, I'm obviously in the right and you're clearly in the wrong.
Yeah.
And that's never how it is. It's both like you're bringing your own approach and you're bringing your own like insecurities to it. But I mean, I think diagnoses are so helpful for relationships because when you don't know why you're feeling certain things, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is very common. This is very normal for someone struggling with this particular type of, whatever biological cards they were handed. It just, we have so much more empathy for each other now where I know like, okay, this is the kind of thing that's really going to hurt his feelings, even though it might not hurt 90% of people's feelings. This is going to hurt his feelings. So, and he knows that if I'm, overwhelmed or something, that I'm suddenly, everything's going to seem like a catastrophe, because I have anxiety. But before those were like these character judgments, like, God, get it together.
Yeah. I think so many of us can relate to that, and good for you two to really, to talk about it and to get the diagnosis. I think that takes courage.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of times where it would be like, dude, this relationship is not working, walk away. And the thing is, if you don't know that you have a certain set of reactions to things, no relationship is going to work right. And so it's very easy to be like, well, this chemistry is off. Goodbye. See you later.
We need to know ourselves.
Yeah, you need to know yourselves. And there's this book for anyone out there who has ADHD. If you were recently diagnosed or if you're trying to figure out about your relationship, we both listened to the audiobook, ADHD and the Effect on Marriage, I think, even though we're not married, but it's about like long-term relationships. Essentially, it's just about, and it's awesome even if you're in a work partnership with someone. I wish I knew. I was in a work partnership with someone who had ADHD, and I look back and I'm like, oh, I would have handled things differently now, knowing what was difficult, and I think I would have been able to understand that better. But yeah, I want to look and see. It's in my, I think it's ADHD and the Effect on Marriage. Okay. Yeah. The ADHD Effect on Marriage. It's by Melissa Orlov, but it's really good at describing how people who have ADHD might get into relationships that look super codependent. Like one person's always got to have everything together and the other is like always fucking up. And, that's a really common pattern in codependent relationships. But, when you start to understand, like attention deficit more, then you get like, oh, okay. Someone might just need different tools and the other person needs to not judge them so much.
Yeah. I remember when, so I have clinical depression myself, and I have history of eating disorders, and I have anxiety myself. And I remember when I first started dating my wife, she basically said like, you need to go to therapy or this is not going to work, because she knew that I needed to do a lot of work to figure out what was going on and know myself. I think in the knowing ourselves is like figuring out like, okay, how do I care about myself? What matters to me? Why do I value myself? And then that sort of extends to, then to partners and friends, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think, I feel like in scientific terms, like your closest relationship is a really good laboratory. It's like a very high stakes, high intensity, like, when you can figure things out in that, it can certainly help you like, oh, my friends always late to lunch. Okay, well, I know that this is probably what's behind that, but I think it's funny how a lot of times people think therapy or self-improvement is just for people who have certain struggles. But it really, those little patterns and those ways that we approach problems affect so many different aspects of our lives, know? And that there's no shame in getting to know how you operate. It's almost like you're just reading an owner's manual on yourself,
Yeah. I love that. Do you think that doing ologies and kind of doing your, your science-based shows and thinking in the terms of like, I'm going to be curious about this, I'm going to learn about it, more knowledge sort of helps me sort of, have this conversation, see the world better? Like, has that helped? Has that framework and way of looking at things helped in your own sort of like self-care and mental health?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think every single episode of Ologies, I learned a ton of stuff I had no idea and had no idea that I didn't know. And so I think also it's made me feel less ashamed to learn and to dig out answers. And, I do so much research for the episodes just because I end up going down these rabbit holes where I'm like, oh, what do porcupines eat? And you realize like, oh, there's so much information out there if you just tap it. It's just like an endless amount. And also, I think hearing that there are so many people who have struggled in their own lives and overcome it, or you just wouldn't guess from looking at them that they did. You wouldn't guess that they had imposter syndrome. You wouldn't guess that, on the topic of ADHD, I've talked to several ologists who have it, who are PhDs and have written books and are, but they have these struggles behind the scenes, or they doubted themselves, or who have anxiety or perfectionism. So it's always so great and so inspiring to talk to these people and be like, oh, you're kicking ass and you're happy and you're doing what you like. I can do that too. And also just from like a scientific standpoint, I've gotten so much more curious about my own anxiety. And for a long time, I didn't realize that I had anxiety because I'm not scared of strangers. I'm not scared of snakes or airplanes. There's a lot of things that outside forces don't freak me out. It's mostly just like, am I enough? Will I be able to take care of myself? Am I doing a good enough job? And so because I wasn't scared of a lot of things that I thought anxiety was, I didn't have a lot of phobias. I was just like, no, life is just hard and I'm not equipped to deal with it, And so I used to just think that my anxiety was all about my circumstances. I had too much work or I was too tired or whatever.
Was there a light bulb moment in sort of discerning, oh, I have anxiety?
What's funny is like, I was talking to a therapist. I was talking to my therapist about, this was like 2 years ago. And I was like, hey, if I got a dog, could you like write me a letter so maybe I could like take it on a plane or something? I was totally like trying to scam my therapist into making one of those fake notes. And he was like,
one of those.
I know. I felt like such a shitbag, but I was like, can you do it? And he was like, oh no, I'll just write you one. Your anxiety is really bad. I was like, oh, really? There was this moment where like, I didn't realize that like, I had enough anxiety to actually qualify for an emotional support animal.
Oh. So did he like, what was he picking up on to say like, okay, you have pretty bad anxiety? He told me that I had generalized anxiety disorder and I just didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I thought you had anxiety in response to stressors. You had anxiety because life was hard. I didn't realize like, oh, wow, no, I have anxiety because of my particular chemical makeup, or because I haven't learned better coping mechanisms yet. And so I think him explaining to me, I did actually have a moment where he asked me to show him my to-do list. And my to-do list was like a mile long. It was like it's usually a piece of cardstock I keep in my purse, all my stuff to do. And he was like, how would you feel if I asked you not to use that for a week? And I burst out crying. And I was like, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm like, that sounds so scary to not use a to-do list for a week. Like what would happen? I would get so behind. Like I can't, what? That's like asking me not to drink water for a week. Like, but just my reaction to that. And then yes, him following up saying that I could take a dog on a plane. Was like, oh yeah, that's not normal. Like that's not normal to be so worried that you're not going to do a good enough job, that the notion of just keeping track of your tasks in your head is unbearable, Yeah.
But I thought that anxiety was like, lock your doors, or anxiety was like, you never know when, you might get attacked by a dog, like I thought it was all these, I thought it was very physical stuff. And just the idea kind of emotionally of not being good enough was something that had plagued me for, so many years.
Yeah. I think there is, and it goes to the sort of binary sort of framework thing we were talking about, like when it comes to mental health, right? Or mental illness or disorders or whatever, like we tend to like conflate things. We tend to like look at things like, okay, anxiety has to be this big scary thing that only these people have, right? And there's no like space for nuance. There's no space for, the kind of anxiety that you're talking about. The kind of anxiety that is, typical, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like we think of like, oh, like this person is depressed, like they must have, have a history with self-harm or suicidal ideation or whatever.
Yeah.
That person's not me because, and I think that sometimes can like limit people from like getting help,
Oh, for sure. I mean, like with your depression, did you ever read lists and where you're like, I don't know, like people's depression manifests so differently,
differently. Yeah.
Yeah. And and you're also like, what does it mean to be hopeless? I don't know. Like, look at the economy. Isn't everyone hopeless? Like, it's really hard to be like, am I tired because I travel too much, or am I tired because I'm depressed? It's really hard to figure it out. And yeah, I totally get that. And did you feel like when you got diagnosed with depression, did you feel relief, or were you like, oh, I got to deal with this now?
No, I like your boyfriend. I felt a relief because I felt like, okay, this thing because I swear I had depression as a kid and it just was, was repressed or ignored or, whatever. And so when I was diagnosed, it was like, okay, like you said before, like, okay, I have a little bit of a framework here to like make a bit more sense of like these fucking awful moments where I do feel hopeless. Like, I think one of the best descriptions of depression that I've heard, which my friend Jeff Wag, he says, depression is a lack of curiosity.
Oh, wow.
Right? And that's what it looks
good.
like for me when I'm really sort of in the muck I lose my curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's such a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's like an apathy that's not just material, but it's really almost like a spiritual level of apathy. Just like why learn about things, why care?
Right.
And that's so true. And the thing that makes that hard too is I think like getting help when you don't have the drive to figure out how to get help is really hard. Like, that's one thing that I think is really interesting too about like our culture in terms of getting help. Like, because we live in we have this internet culture where we have a steady stream of people's opinions, and those opinions may not be evidence-based. There might be something someone tweeted in a Taco Bell bathroom, but we take them all kind of with equal weight. And one thing I always find that's interesting is when someone is lost to depression, through self-harm. If someone commits suicide, and I don't want to say commit because it's not a crime.
They die by suicide, yeah.
They die by suicide. That's so funny that is a term that's been so ingrained that that's what it's called. There's always so much of just reach out. If someone's looks like they're hurting, reach out to your friends. But then there's also this culture where people literally have pillows stitched with the words "good vibes only." There's like,
right.
There's also a culture where it's like, you know what I did? I cut out toxic people. And it's really hard to get those different messages because, where does empathy start and stop? I think empathy is sometimes something that we use at our own convenience. If someone in your life
when it's comfortable only.
Yeah, exactly. When it doesn't put you out. Empathy is great if it's not putting you out. And I think that's really hard. I think it's hard to draw boundaries sometimes when you do feel really empathetic about someone's struggle, even if maybe it's hurting you, but it's also, I feel like we need better language for that because a lot of times we don't preach about reaching out to someone until it's too late,
Yeah.
And going back to what we checked in on, and one reason why this has been such a weird, hard week for me is I don't, boundaries are sometimes difficult when you know that the behavior that might prompt them comes from a place of hurt,
Mm-hmm.
If someone is doing something that doesn't feel comfortable for you, it's really hard to know when to put that boundary up. And so, yeah, I just think the way that we look at mental health is usually with a little bit too much foresight, but in the moment it can be really hard to think outside of yourself and say, okay, like, what does this person actually need and how's the best way to approach it? Sometimes you can't do anything.
No, it's true. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just have to kind of be there and listen and be present. And it like anything, it takes practice. So last week I led a little empathy vulnerability workshop at the Laguna College of Art and Design. And we were talking about empathy and this is another example of what we're talking about. This, like, when we think about empathy, we think about it in very sort of like linear, sort of like singular terms, like putting ourselves in the shoes of another. But like the reality is that there's a lot more to empathy. Like, I can have empathy for you and your sort of awful catfish experience.
So weird.
Because I've experienced feeling let down. I've experienced what have you. I can go there emotionally, and that's a version of empathy I think it's important to talk about. And I think the good vibes thing, the good vibes only thing, I get it. Like, I get where that's coming from. I get the sort of idea that like positive mindset can be beneficial, but I obviously on its surface it's not very sort of inclusive of the nuance of the gray that we're talking about. And I think the more that we can get there and sort of see people for who they are and kind of just meet them where they're at, like the other stuff like kind of doesn't matter because we're not being influenced by all of these things that says like this should be this way and empathy is this, and but just showing up for people and being present is I think that's where we need to start, right?
Yeah. And one thing I learned in this situation that I'm in is like, usually if you are angry at someone, like, anger is usually hurt and hurt is usually vulnerability, and you do really have to disassemble it in order to find the part of you that can be vulnerable enough to say, like, hey, this hurts, but I still love you and care about you, and this really hurt, instead of just coming at it with claws. But I think that what you said about vulnerability is so important. I mean, it is really scary too, because I think that a lot of times when maybe there's something in our life that is uncomfortable, it reflects a little bit on what we are uncomfortable about in ourselves, Yeah. Sometimes if someone lets us down, I think that can be really painful because you think, oh God, what if I let people down,
Yeah, totally.
So that kind of, I don't know, I think that it can just come up with this soup of bad emotions. So I think that people are tempted just to move on to something bright and shiny, but like, I don't know, the best friendships I've ever had, I think are the ones where you really get to know other people's, gloomy sides. Because that means if they're willing to show that to you, like, then there is a closeness there, that you don't just get from social media, Instagram stories, the real story. And I think that more and more in such like an internet culture, like really savoring those times with people that you feel like you're showing up really authentically is really valuable. Like, that's the stuff you should cherish. You should go to people's baby showers. That was a horrible example. You should go there and you should talk to people.
Yeah, totally. And
little typos.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to give you sort of kudos for the catfish experience being this really understandably troublesome, confusing experience, and kudos to you for having also empathy with all of those feelings. I think that's a hard thing to do, and it's something that I've sort of tried to, in the last couple of years, work on, with my father, like have like this empathy of like understanding, okay, maybe he didn't have a great childhood, and then maybe that's sort of impacted on how he sort of treated others, and, and having that empathy, I think it's hard work, but it's important. So good job.
Well, thanks.
Yeah.
I wish that you could, yeah, sometimes it's just those kinds of things are just a process with the other person, like I genuinely feel really like I feel the pain that would cause someone to maybe lie or manipulate, like you can't be in a good place to do that. And it's just really tough to be like, hey, that doesn't feel good to be lied to, but I understand that, people do things a lot of times because they want love and they want approval and they want safety, and the behavior, isn't okay, but I feel like it's always okay to be a human being who feels like they want love and approval and closeness, like how you're getting it can always vary, but like everyone deserves that, no one needs to manipulate or show up as someone that they're not, that is the thing that's the saddest to me about it, is like, oh, every person, as at their core is lovable and deserves, respect and stuff. You don't have to be something that you're not. So it's really sticky, and I don't want to, this isn't ever like I would never like vindictively want to be like, wow, what a piece of shit. Cause I don't think the malice is always behind our actions that aren't our finest actions. I think that, malice is not always what is, what's driving them, but
right.
Yeah, it's so hard. Like feelings are hard.
Feelings are hard. Has that like, when it comes to feelings, like you sort of being a curious person and into science and there's lots of information you're learning all the time. Like the thing I've learned about feelings is that like, okay, they're temporary and I need to be curious about them and I need to sit with them sometimes. Like, how are you with feelings? Like, how is that like? It's probably messy.
No, it is, but I have certainly gotten better at asking myself questions. The more stupid questions I ask smart people, the more I ask myself questions too.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And so instead of just being like a Tasmanian devil who's like, nah, I have to be like, okay, Alie, what's really going on here? And I find that is really helpful to have a discussion with myself, because sometimes it's like you wait for your partner or your friends to be like, hey, what's wrong? And you're like, thanks for asking. I'm willing to dissect it now. And sometimes you don't have to always rely on other people to do that. You can be like, hey, myself, what's going on here?
Yeah, we are our best advocates.
Yeah. And therapists, like not always your best therapist, but therapists are our best therapists. But yeah, like sometimes I have to like sit and really dissect the soup of emotions, because you might be like, I'm really stressed out that I have to catch this flight. And it's like, what you're really stressed out about is you have to catch this flight and, your dad's not feeling well and you don't want to be away from him. You know what I mean? So you blame it on some of the externals when really there's something behind it. And so, yeah, sometimes you have to, you can't be in therapy 24 hours a day. So sometimes you gotta ask yourself that a lot, and you end up learning like, glad I asked myself that. It's not a stupid question. It's a good question.
Yeah.
just like the scientists always say, that's not a stupid question.
There's no such thing.
There's no such thing. So yeah, it's like, it ends up being something I carry into the rest of my life. Like, ask questions. Good to know.
So one of the things I love about your show and love about you, Alie, is this, you're very good at celebrating humanity. You're very good at celebrating and sort of showing the world like these are like these joys that these people contain and have worked on, and you're sharing that with others. And like, how are you at that for yourself? you know, because I know that for me, I guess we talked about that a little bit at the start. Like for me, it's always like I'm the last and often forgotten person.
No, it shouldn't be that way.
No, it shouldn't. So how are you with that? Do you struggle with that?
Yeah, I mean, I do. Um, and I think that I have like a 4-part struggle with it, because I think I struggle with it partly because I don't want to look like I don't struggle with it, if that makes sense. Like, and you know, you mentioned having narcissistic parents, but I think sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't want to just say what I want because I don't want to seem like I'm just out there taking everything for myself. So I think that there's part of me that like intentionally puts myself on the back burner just so that no one thinks that I want to put myself first.
Oh,
Just like
interesting.
so many layers.
Wow.
You know, I think that comes down to really like Freudian, you know, as antiquated as it is, like ego, superego, id.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that a lot of policing my own id I do because I don't want to be, you know, obnoxious. And so I think I probably over police, you know, but you know, one thing that learning other people's stories, I think I'm sure you can relate to this, really does is, you know, it lets you see kind of the ways in which you had privilege, you know, not even if you had, you know, certain levels of emotional abuse or certain really big struggles, you may have had things that were easier than other people's, you know. And so I think that one thing that, yeah, Ologies has kind of done is just make me more aware of the ways in which I am really lucky and have been really lucky. Like, certainly was not always roses, and I've certainly been through some stuff that I would not want to relive. But there are ways in which I am incredibly fortunate, and there are relationships that I am so lucky to have in my life. And, you know, just having people listen to this thing that I made and having it be a job, like I'm so lucky to that. So, I mean, it sounds corny, but just like that gratitude of the things in your life that do go right is really nice. And I think that for a long time I felt like gratitude was the same as like gloating, or gratitude was smug.
Sure.
You know, but even if you'd only say it to yourself, like, you should never appreciate what you have, because think of the people that don't have it. But I think that that's exactly why you should appreciate it, because it's, you know, having things to be grateful for is a privilege. And so I think in times when I'm not feeling so great, just saying, like, taking a second saying, holy shit, like, you know, your dad has cancer, but he has outlived his prognosis, you know, so much. Like, is it great he has cancer? No, it's not. Is it amazing that you can text him today, right now? Yes. Like, that's awesome. Like, sometimes am I overworked? Sure. Is it a goddamn blessing to have more work than you can juggle? Yes. You know, and so just trying to find what's really great about your life helps you in those moments. And I think Ologies really has helped me see that a lot, that everyone has these different stories and everyone has different things that they struggle with and different things that they got lucky with, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about your dad.
He's amazing, and he's such a fighter. And also, like, just there are people out there, hematologists, oncologists, they're working on cures for this stuff, you know, and that's like someone who, yeah, might be sitting next to you in an airplane terminal, and you'd never know that, like, they're working on a pill that can prolong people's lives, you know? So, yeah, even though it is very tempting to be like, everything sucks, like, the things that suck are the things that you pay attention to sucking, you know, and for everything that sucks in your life, like, you can probably find like 4 things that are pretty dope, you know? I went to Thailand like 10 years ago, and it was great and an adventure. And, you know, some places I stayed were super rustic, but there were places where I showered into mud and, you know, on islands. And so when I come home, even just now, I'm like, man, it's so crazy. There's hot water. There's no mud around. That's nuts. Like, wow. And, you know, Also, it depends on where you shower. There are plenty of places that have mud floors here, but just those little things where you're like, wow, I don't have to wash my feet after I wash my feet. That's pretty dope. Like, there's a lot. Like, hot water is amazing. Having clean water to drink is awesome. So if I'm ever in too shitty a mood, I'm always just like, let's take stock of some stuff that's okay.
I love that. And I love that I love it is so important to recognize the privilege piece of it. And with that doesn't mean like we can't feel our things and we can't, feel the gratitude or feel the struggle. It's both things at once, right? Like,
yeah.
Just because I am recognizing that I am a white male, raised in a financially, well-to-do family, like doesn't mean that I can't have trauma or I can't have these real valid emotional experiences that have impacted my life. It's both things. Like it's recognizing the privilege and what that comes with it, and also the other stuff.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. There's no one person that has only had it bad and other people who have only had it good. Everyone's had a bit of both. And that's that like non-splitting, non-binary kind of outlook. And that's also, that's just empathy. And that's the thing that I love about ologies is like everyone is this crazy, wonderful, like beautiful quilt of experiences. And you go around thinking everyone else is like a spotless duvet cover. And you're like, oh no, everyone's a quilt. Everyone's got like a little old t-shirt in there and some like really nice chenille. Everyone's got all these patchwork stuff. And that's what's cool is if you stop to listen to their stories, you'll find it ends up giving you a lot of solace that your life seems more patchwork. That's like, oh, that's just being a human being.
Yeah. And there's spots on the side of those quilts where we can, sew each other together.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. Keep adding to it.
Keep adding to it.
Perfect. Yeah.
Get some more dog hair in there.
I'm covered in dog hair right now.
Oh, yeah. Always. Always. So let's start kind of wrapping it up here. I want to hear... Let's first start with Empathy Heroes, and then we'll talk about like what's coming up for you. Because I know there's a Netflix show coming up, which I'm pretty excited about. But we always kind of start wrapping up the show, Alie, talking about Empathy Heroes. So these are people in our lives we know personally, or they could be characters from books or movies we even like. So I will go first and name my Empathy Hero this week to give you a moment to think on yours. Mm-hmm. It's voting day, everyone, as of this recording. And so my Empathy Hero is the person I voted for, Elizabeth Warren. Oh. I'm tired of old white men ruling the day, one. And two, Elizabeth Warren is she just seems very grounded and humble, and I appreciate that. She's also like wicked smart, and so I hope she wins. Fingers crossed, but like she is my empathy hero because she just seems like she has a good heart. I don't know her personally, obviously, but I'm rooting for her, and that's why she's my empathy hero.
She is likable as hell.
Yes, she is.
For sure. I can't, the amount of drive and empathy to go into public service is amazing. I just, whenever I see, I'm like, oh, good on you, man. I am too confused by paperwork to try to be in public office.
Yeah,
but
same.
Thank you, someone else, for doing that. But, oh my gosh, that's a great one. I think I'd have to say I'm going to go, I've already mentioned a few times, so I'm going to go with my boyfriend, Jared Sleeper. He's my empathy hero. He's very, has a huge, big heart, and he always comes at things with a lot of understanding for other people, and is probably like the least judgmental person. You can say and do anything around him, and he always understands, and he's very quick to forgive if you're in a bad mood. And yeah, he's just very much a bleeding heart for everyone. And he has this weird amount of like jujitsu outside, and then writes poetry about the human experience. And so he shows me that you can be all kinds of people in one person. And so, yeah, I'm very lucky to have gotten to share my life with him for 8 years. He's taught me about how you can be strong and squishy at the same time.
I love that, and that's so beautiful. And he's clearly a man after my own heart, as running his mental health podcast. So
Yeah, you would
amazing.
dig him. You guys gotta go to. We'll all have to get an OC coffee sometime. Yeah, you dig
Let's
each
do
other.
that. Let's do that. You can come pet our horses.
Oh God, I love horses.
Well, yeah, thanks for sharing that. So, Alie, what's next? What's coming next? I know you have the Netflix show. Like, what's exciting in 2020 for you?
Oh my gosh. This Netflix show I am actually really excited about. It's called 100 Humans, and it's 100 people that represent the demographics of the US and then we put them through a bunch of social experiments. So to see if people are as biased as they say, if people are more biased.
I watched the trailer. It looked amazing.
It was such a blast to work on, and we worked with actual social psychologists and statisticians who were like literally on the sidelines in actual lab coats, running all the surveys and crunching all the numbers and stuff. And the thing that I loved about it so much is, we started this long shoot, a month-long shoot or whatever, and no one knew anyone. Everyone just was in the same sweatpants with a number. And, a few days into it, you started seeing cliques start to dissolve. And then you started to see super young people hanging out with really, the older set and laughing, and just all these people who maybe wouldn't have been put together becoming really good friends toward the end of it. And it was just really interesting to see how much people can learn about each other if they're just kind of stuck together. But and some of the humans got their numbers tattooed on themselves at the end. It was like a really emotional,
that's beautiful.
Yeah, it was really cool to see how much people learned about each other and how much we got to learn about them. And so, we shot it the summer before last, and then we shot a bunch of supplemental footage. So it's been a long time coming. So it's also just cool to be like, oh yeah, remember? Oh yeah, I shot this show. I forgot. Here it is. So that's kind of exciting. And then, I love making ologies. I have an endless list of topics I want to cover, and yeah, it's really challenging and fun to get to see how I change, just based on getting to hear other people's stories and how much I learn and how much I learn from my listeners. Like, I've learned so much about gender identity from listeners, just from emails they'll send me, maybe a researcher says something about, men versus women, and then I'll get a really interesting email from someone who's non-binary who's explaining me their position and their history, and I get to learn about that.
What a gift!
I get to learn, I get to learn that inclusivity isn't just about trying to cover bases. I think some people feel like inclusivity is like, well, I have to do this so no one will get mad at me, but empathetically, really learning what that means to someone to feel included, and how it affects you when you feel included. Like, that is such a driving factor in making sure that people are seen and feel seen. And I think some people silently resent it for being afraid of being on watch or doing something wrong. But it's not about doing something wrong and getting caught with a blind spot. It's about letting yourself say, I don't know what your position is, and I'm so excited to hear and understand more. And because we don't all have the same backgrounds. And so it's just really, it's about like listening and applying it forward. And so I've gotten to learn so much from listeners.
Yeah. Do you, that's so beautifully said. And I was wondering, you say that there's a never-ending list of ologies. Do you have a long list going that you haven't even touched yet?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, there are some websites that have them listed. I have a book that has just a list of them. It was a gift from a friend of mine who knows me too well, and and yeah, there's I'm looking at it right now. Numismatology is the study of and collection of coins. Who does that? What's it all about? There's so many. There's hundreds of them. So yeah, there's tegestology is the study and art of collecting beverage coasters. Who does it? Who does this? There's study of syphilis. There's study of miracles. Some people saintly miracles. So yeah, there's no shortage. And behind each ology, there's a person who has made it their life's work and passion, and that's where the real story is. Like, I get to learn about coin collecting, but I also get to learn about someone who, maybe found a coin in a riverbank when they were 4, and now it's part of their soul.
Stories,
so that's
yeah.
That's what I really love getting into.
Yeah, I love it. And where can people connect with you and listen to all the stuff?
Oh, well, Ologies is wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're listening to this amazing podcast, then you already know how to get a podcast. So it's just called Ologies with Alie Ward. And different ology every week. And then I'm also on a CBS show called Innovation Nation every Saturday, and a CW show called Did I Mention Invention? And if you only do streaming, then I'm on a kids science show called Brainchild on Netflix. And then the upcoming, comes out March 13th, is 100 Humans. And then I think that's all my jobs. I consult on a couple other jobs, but those aren't.
Many jobs.
I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. I'm lucky to be this tired.
Amazing. Well, listeners, go follow Alie, go listen to Ologies, check out all the things, and get curious and be curious, because curiosity, listeners, is an important part of our mental health, and it's nothing to be scared about. It's just what it is and what we are. So, Alie, thank you so much for being a guest on You Me Empathy.
Thank you so much for having me and for doing the stuff you do. Keep doing it. It's important and it's going to be amazing. I'm so excited for your next projects. Like, keep doing it.
Well, I've always wanted a supportive dad, and now I have one, so thank you.
Yay, Dad Ward loves you.
And listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here, we're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You, Me, Empathy.